I printed off some heart designs on my computer to save me the trouble of tracing. So I came up with 4 basic designs, and these are the hearts for those 4 designs, and then I just printed a bunch of them and trimmed them down. And now I'm going to flip them over and apply text pages to them as my first layer of design. So I'm just using a glue stick. And these are going to get paint and gesso and probably matte medium over them before they're done. So I feel okay starting with a glue stick. So a little bit of glue stick, and then this is the right side. And I'm going to center this so it gets the most text onto my hearts. And just flatten it out with a brayer. And I have a book on the other side of my table that I'm going to slip this under so that it stays flat while it dries. And I'm going to do that to this whole stack of printouts. So now these are dry, and I've also trimmed around the edges so they're the same size as my printouts, and that way I won't be wasting any more paint than I have to. So these are just covered with text pages from old books that I buy at thrift stores. These are Portuguese, and this is Korean and Greek, and some old dictionary pages, and then some pages that I tore out of a book that I was altering that are in English. I save all those in a file folder in a drawer right next to me, so that when I do projects like this, I have something to lay down as texture. So now I'm just going to gesso each page to lay down a surface to paint on, and also to knock down the text, to turn it into something that's more texture and less, gee, I wonder what that says. And I'm not doing a particularly even coat of gesso. It's thin enough to let the text show through in some places, and in other places it's maybe a little denser and a little darker. And this will give me a good surface to paint on. So I'm going to lay down some acrylics next. So you probably don't need to watch me do the whole stack of this, but just a light coat of gesso, kind of light uneven coat. And I'm doing it with a foam sponge, which is generally my applicator of choice when I'm doing big projects like this. I can use one of these sponges for 10 pages and then throw it out, and I don't have to worry about cleanup or is my brush getting too crusty or any of that. So I'm just going to work my way through this pile, and then I'll come back and do some painting. Now that the gesso is dry, I'm going to lay down a layer of color. I just pulled out a variety of pink and reds for the hearts. I think I'm going to keep them all in that sort of palette, and then do some different stuff with background colors. So I'm just using a very light coat of paint and spreading it as much as I can so that I don't completely obliterate my text pages underneath. So you can see that the text is sort of glowing through. I'm using craft acrylics for this. That's my paint of choice. I generally don't use artist acrylics for much. This one, it looks like the text page lifted a little bit from getting wet. So I'm going to do a little quick gluing before I paint. And there's also a little ripple right here, which I'm probably going to let these dry overnight. And usually the ripples lay back down, so I'm not too worried about it. So I don't know that I have too much more to say about this layer. It's just a plain base coat layer, and then on top of this I'm going to start adding some texture. I let all of these dry overnight with some wax paper over the top of them and books laying on top to keep them nice and flat. And a couple of these still have little marks where the wrinkles were, but they're pretty flat. They're maybe a little raised, but not as wrinkly as they were when I first got them damp with gesso. So as long as you put a little bit of weight on them and let them dry completely, they'll flatten back out. So my next layer is going to be some sequin waste. This is sequin waste or punchinella, and I've got this light pink here, so I want something with some contrast. So I'm going to take kind of a dark pink. And lay this over the top. And I just want to get my sponge a little bit damp with paint, not too much. And then go over this kind of randomly. I don't want to cover the whole thing. I just want to break up the surface. I'm just patting the paint on. Try not to drag it because your holes will get kind of mushy. Your pattern will get mushy. There. So I'm going to let this dry, and then I think I'll probably be ready to cut out the hearts. And my goal with these is to make them very different. So this other light pink one, I think what I'm going to do is do red on it. And then I also have some white and some black over here that I'm going to do on the others. So I'm going to do the rest of this off camera and then show you what I've come up with. Here are my finished papers, and you can see they all look pretty different. I painted through sequin waste with a lot of different colors, white and black and different pinks and purples, and so they all look really different. And now I want to turn them into this, which is the separate heart designs that I'm going to use for the postcards. And once I do this to them, I can start treating them as individuals and doing designs on them that are unique to each heart. So basically all I have to do is flip each sheet over and cut the hearts apart into separate pieces, and then cut them around the outlines that are on the back side, and they become independent hearts. So that was a really quick and easy way to turn a few sheets of cardstock into, I think I'm going to end up with enough hearts for 40 postcards when I'm done with this.